Welcome to another episode of the Profit Minded Business Podcast. And today we're joined with Tyler Jones of Carmichael Consulting, IT, and of course our friend and production manager here, Jacob Andrews with Drones iVue and Media iVue. iVue Media, no, I did it again. Just because of the flip on that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys both for being here today. It's we feel like we come together to help other small business owners. You know, as small business owners, we tend to suffer silently.
Sure.
There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of responsibility. And so it's rare that we get a chance to just learn from one another as much as we'd like. And, you know, we've all been a part of something called Power Core, and whether it's past or present. And we just learned so much from talking and connecting with other business owners that we just felt like that this is a platform for us to share pitfalls to be avoided, successes to be celebrated, and, of course, opportunities just to sharpen one another's relationships and skills. So thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And so my name is Corbin Cook, and I'm with S&B Strategy Consultants and the Auxilium Associate Group. And I'm a fractional CFO, and we just like to be an advocate for small business owners. Tyler, why don't you take us off a little bit and tell us about your background?
Sure. So, as you said, I'm Tyler Jones with Carmichael Consulting Solutions. We are a managed service IT provider in the North Atlanta area. I spent about 15 years in corporate IT. Before that, actually, my first job out of college was as a social worker. And that's kind of a big jump. That surprises a lot of people. Those two things don't necessarily always connect with one another. But I had been a political science minor and a sociology major in college. And so as a young man fresh out of school, I thought, well, this fits me perfectly then to do government social work.
Right.
So I took the state exam, did well, wanted to work in Fulton County because it was the most challenging place to work. And I've always been one to embrace a challenging situation. I think that's where your greatest opportunities often lie. And I enjoyed parts of that work. It was a really educational experience for me. And the reason I mention it is what I took away from that when I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do with the rest of my life was I loved serving. I loved helping people. That was really rewarding to me. And so taking that away, I said, okay, well, what can I do that would use that, but potentially be a shift in what I'm doing day to day? I was an avid technology hobbyist. I'd had no formal training on that, but I figured I love technology. It's fascinating to me. This is in 1996, so early days of the internet. AOL addresses were still used, all that kind of crazy stuff. Marrying that with being able to help people, I said, all right, well, if I can get my foot in the door just doing help desk work somewhere, that would be a great starting point. And
helping people.
Yeah, absolutely. It is helping people and it's technology. Hey, great. That's a wonderful marriage of the things that I think I'm interested in. And it turns out I was pretty accurate. So I got in an entry-level help desk job. Over the years, worked up through the ranks into senior technology leadership, then into project management, ultimately into leadership roles, both at the kind of line level, managing a small technical team, and on up into executive leadership over the course of the 15 years I spent. And when I've kind of looked back and took time to reflect on what I wanted to do with the next chapter of my life, it came back again to that service thing. That was what I really loved. And part of what I wanted to get away from in the corporate world were those things that didn't generate great service. Mm-hmm. And so political infighting, all of that kind of stuff really was something that I wanted to get away from. And so being able to start my own business, being able to serve small businesses with technology needs was something that really excited me. And 8 years later now, still is what gets me excited and gets me out of bed in the morning, enthusiastic to find what the day brings. And that is so incredibly valuable. I mean, for any of us who work in small businesses, there's nothing that beats being able to get out of the bed in the morning, not kind of dreading going to work, but being excited about it, having that anticipation of what the day will bring. And ultimately, the people we work with feel that. If you don't love what you do, people will pick up on that. We've all been in some kind of a situation, whether it's in retail or something like that, where you can just tell the person you're dealing with is having a bad day. Yeah. And I don't ever want to be in that spot again. So I always am enthusiastic and grateful for the opportunities that I've had.
One thing that you mentioned about being in that corporate space was just the disconnect of the different departments.
Yeah.
You know, you had this client experience, and where you may be doing, you know, your project might be going great, but you've got the disconnect with the other areas that's just basically mucking it all up.
Yeah.
So, you know, here you end up launching out on your own. You say, I want control over the customer experience. you want to be able to manage that and provide that wow service based on the passion.
Right.
And but that's not an easy jump. I mean, you go from being more of a technician to someone who now is running a business. And
right.
As we know, a lot of technicians, they have an entrepreneurial seizure, and then boom, they're in business. But tell me about your journey. Was it like that for you, or what was that jump like?
So thankfully, I'd had the opportunity in my progression in corporate life to go into executive leadership. So I'd kind of gotten away from the purely technical management. It was business management. But what I wanted to do in getting away from that, I'd spent a lot of my career time in fairly high security environments, banking, payroll, industries like that. And what I wanted to be able to do was take what worked really well in big enterprise environments. So things like data protection, security, data integrity, backup, systems management, all of those practices that tend to work really well in those environments, and scale those down and make them affordable to small and medium-sized businesses. And thankfully, when I started Carmichael Consulting in 2011, that was kind of a rapidly growing need. I mean, we've seen kind of all these horror stories about companies getting hacked, about data breaches, things like that. That coupled with the rising regulatory requirements around security and things like that made it a perfect time to be able to get into that space and bring really well-developed enterprise-level expertise to that. So it wound up being really well-timed. I wish I could claim some brilliance and put on my, viewing the future hat kind of stuff. It wasn't. I thankfully just got very lucky, but I felt like there was a need there that was largely unfulfilled, and thankfully that proved out to be true.
No.
So you found a trend and ran with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, could you talk about how the services and your work at Carmichael has evolved as technology has changed over time? Because as I imagine when you started, you said 8 years ago, that the internet and technology was in a vastly different place than what it is today. Can you talk about, how that's changed and how it's affected your business?
Absolutely. A great question. And that is one of those things that I think all of us in small business leadership roles have to be cognizant of, is our industries are all constantly changing. Technology as much, if not more than a lot, but it is something that we constantly have to, adapt to and build on. And so I think one of the things that's been important for me has been focus on kind of the core cultural things and build off of that, because that's going to change less, if any, than the kind of technical acumen around it. What I mean by that is, we really have always tried to center what we do on service, on being able to be intelligent and help inform our customers. Most people don't want to know the ins and outs of the technology. They just want to know, is my business going to be able to thrive? Right. Are you going to be enabling me to grow? So we really have always been deliberate about how we communicate with customers, again, delivering great service. But the business itself has had to be able to evolve. And so we have, and there's been a lot of transition in our industry. When I started Carmichael Consulting, there was still a lot of kind of what's called break fix, where you waited until something went wrong with your technology, you called your IT company, they started charging you on an hourly rate, they billed you until it was fixed, and then you paid and moved on. And most of our industry has moved to what we do, which is called managed services. And the idea with managed services is, hey, wouldn't it be better if rather than waiting for something to break and then responding, we could prevent it from breaking in the first place? And that seems, when you say it, like, yeah, of course, that's obvious. Who wouldn't want that? But it has been an evolution, because there was kind of so much entrenched habit in the old model of break fix. So one of the things that we've been able to delineate to our customers and to new prospects as we work with them is the idea here. What's different about this is it puts us in a position, again, where we can be preventative, where we can reduce a company's downtime, where we can reduce their risk because we're constantly monitoring systems. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's face it, big enterprises have had massive breaches because they weren't watching their own systems. Right. How do you expect a small business owner to do that? It's unreasonable. So it puts us in a position where we can then become effectively fully outsourced IT, and it makes it easy for the client because we tell them we are the one hand to shake or one throat to grab, however you want to put it, but we are kind of the one-stop shop for everything related to IT. So everything from the internet connection to their cloud services to their computers on site to backup and antivirus and all of those other things, we are kind of the one place to turn for everything related to IT. We also then get actively engaged because when we are meeting with a prospect, there's two parts of what we're looking at. There's the technical part. Yeah, we want to see the wiring closet. We want to look at your servers. We want to know what cloud services you're using today. But we also want to talk to the business leaders. We want to understand the business itself because I think that's critically important in delivering a valuable service. So we want to understand what are their pain points? What does their growth look like for the business? What are their objectives? Where are they trying to get? Because you certainly want to make sure that the IT is poised to be there when they get to that point rather than always trying to play catch up.
So you guys do more of a helping the business owner identify opportunities to improve. Right, I mean, there's the vision. You've got the innovation hat with the owner, but sometimes they don't understand what they don't know. Right, they just don't know what they don't know.
Absolutely.
And so you kind of come in and start to open the idea door of different cloud-based services, different other software types that may help them do what they're trying to accomplish in a more efficient way.
Absolutely. And so we've really tried to be deliberate about having a broad portfolio of tools and solutions we can draw from. One of the things I saw early on when I got Carmichael started was there were a lot of folks who just kind of had this fixed box of solutions. I work with this one hardware vendor, I work with this one internet provider, and I need all of my customers to force themselves to fit into that box of solutions. Okay. And I thought that was a really bad way to approach that. So we've always wanted to have, like I said, a broad portfolio of solutions to draw from because we want to make sure that whatever tools our customer is going to be successful with, we can implement in an expert fashion and support to make sure they're getting the most out of that. And you're right, one of the things that's important to us in first working with a client is to get to know kind of what are those pain points. We don't want them to have to try and define the solution. We simply want them to tell us what's working and what's not, and let us try and help find great solutions that they may not have even been aware of. We spend a lot of our time going to training, going to industry seminars, just to stay on top of the latest technology. Sure. A small business owner can't possibly do that and grow their business. So we really want to be kind of that trusted advisor, a resource that they can turn to for everything related to technology to help them make sure that they're investing wisely.
We were talking about, I think, which podcast it was, but we were talking about how hard it is for a business to stay on top of everything that's happening around them.
Absolutely.
I mean, the market can change so quickly, and I mean, not just in the IT world. I mean, you look at, we always go back to Blockbuster, Kodak, where it's just like they just didn't see it coming for some reason, and not having that mentality of having that person who their job is to find new ideas and
they're sorry.
No, that was.
But yeah, they're stuck on the old processes, and this set system that they didn't have options like what you provide. Where hey, what works for you, what doesn't, and we can provide a solution no matter the software, the hardware, whatever sort of infrastructure you need to be at the cutting edge of your business, your industry. And it's all with technology solutions.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to go back to kind of your beginning with Carmichael.
Yeah.
And, it's not easy to create a brand. And, in 2011, obviously it was really the up part of the ramp, the recovery. And so it was a opportunity time for you to launch.
Definitely.
Because companies that were ahead of you in time and experience were now struggling to stay afloat, and where you were I'm just going to come in and disrupt.
Absolutely.
So you came in with a very customer-centric disruption plan. Tell us about your how you hit that turn and made it happen.
Well, the first thing, and usually one of the first questions a prospect will ask me is, where did the name come from?
Yeah.
So when I went to register with the Georgia Secretary of State back in 2011, Jones is not very unique. There are a lot of my relatives out there with businesses with the name Jones in it. So Carmichael's actually a family name. That was my mother's maiden name. It's my 19-year-old son's middle name. I always liked the family name. I like the alliteration of Carmichael Consulting. I thought that had a nice ring to it. And there were a grand total of, I believe at the time, 3 business businesses with the name Carmichael in it. So a little less competition for mind share. And thankfully, I was blessed with some good people around me who could help me with that. So the original logo design, which was done at the business's inception, was done by a good friend of mine, a guy named J.J. Pereira, who I've known almost my entire life. Skilled graphical artist who was willing to help me out with the logo design. I came up with some great ideas. But again, I tried to be deliberate about that and not make a decision that was for a company just getting off the ground, but that would be a great answer still in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Sure. So he had a lot of really deliberate thought. The logo we wound up with is 2 overlapping C speech bubbles. So the C is for Carmichael Consulting, the overlapping speech bubbles for the idea of being conversational with our clients and finding that understanding between the two. It was a very deliberate process, and he thankfully is a brilliant guy, because I would have done nothing. I would have had a stick figure. It would have been terrible. So thankfully, it was finding the right people, and that's been one of the things that I think has been important for me as a business owner as we've grown, is being able to identify and realize those moments where you need to find somebody who augments and complements you well.
Yeah. Who was your, maybe not by name so much, but who was your first customer?
Was somebody I had done some work with back in my corporate life, who had struck out on their own to start a small business and realized they didn't have anybody to do IT for them. They were struggling to find somebody they felt they could have a trusted relationship with. And so again, having kind of earned that trust and credibility in my corporate life, that carried right over, and they said, "Hey, I heard you've started your own IT consulting business. I desperately need help there. Is this something you would do?" And so thankfully we had some early wins just from the network of people we'd grown to know. And one of the things I tell people all the time is I am incredibly protective of the brand and our reputation. And as big as Atlanta's gotten to be, I grew up here. I remember Atlanta as a very different city when I was a kid. As big as Atlanta has gotten to be, it is still a small town when you get into industries. And we all know people in our own industries, and you know who's got a good reputation, and you know who doesn't. And unfortunately, if you're not careful, if you don't take great care of your customers at every opportunity, and if you don't do a lot to make sure that you're maintaining the image you want to present out to the world, that will still haunt you. And I have seen a lot of other competitors make mistakes that it's hard for them to shake, even if they're good people, even if it was just one mistake that they didn't handle correctly. I've seen that haunt some people. So I have always been incredibly careful about that. And again, I think it's important not only for the customer relationships you have, but it is equally important for folks who may not know you yet, but are only going to know you and make a, yes, I want to talk to them, or no, I don't decision based on your reputation.
Right.
Now, really quick, you mentioned bring in the graphic designer to help you get started out, and you mentioned the word team. And
yes.
We did briefly talk about that before the podcast, about how hard it is for business owners to grow out the business beyond just themselves, and to bring in people that will, again, represent your business in a manner that's going to help you succeed. Can you talk about maybe your first couple of people that you brought in to help you grow the business internally, and maybe some ideas as to how you would suggest upcoming business owners try to navigate that path themselves?
Absolutely. I think one of the things I realized pretty early on is that there are certain parts of your business and the things that support that do have to mature over time. When you're getting it off the ground, you're trying to do everything as efficiently, as inexpensively, kind of be as lean as possible about how you're doing everything. And I started out of a home office. It was really literally me doing everything. And the good news is the business grew, and I pretty quickly needed to mature as a business owner to the point where I could say, all right, I've got to figure out where I'm the most value to the business itself, and find people who can take things for me and do a better job of them. So I'll give you a good example. One of the first folks we leveraged as an external provider was somebody to help us with our marketing materials. So I am not a marketing person. Yes, I use a Mac, so everybody assumes you're great at Photoshop and everything. I'm not. I'm terrible, just awful. And I could tell you what's pretty and what's not, what looks good and what doesn't, what I think would resonate with a customer and what wouldn't. I can't take it from wouldn't to would, though. That's just not a skill I possess in any way, shape, or form. So I needed to be able to kind of stop trying to do that because, one, I was wasting a lot of time. I'd be better spent landing new business, serving existing customers. Sure. I needed to build a network of trusted resources around me. And actually, PowerCore was a big part of that for me because you kind of instantly get pre-vetted people that you can trust and call on as resources. So we've been working, I just this morning had a meeting with our marketing firm, and we've been working with them for the better part of 5 years now. And they've done a great job for us. They've done wonderful work. They have stood true to our vision. They understand our need and our message. And I think as in any relationship, whether it's us working with a customer or one of the folks who are helping us, it is you want to find somebody who, again, kind of shares your passion, your vision, who you are able to collaborate very naturally with. I think that's important. And so this was a great option for us, and they really helped us up our game. Our materials look fabulous. We really give a great presentation. It all looks very polished, and that's who we want to be. That's the image we want to represent. We don't want something that looks like somebody made this, at the copy shop in 10 minutes on a loaner PC. That you certainly don't want to present that image. So it does help us make sure that the image accurately represents who we are in terms of skills and in terms of the vision for what we want to deliver to our customers. Sure. We have a finance person that we work with who very similarly, somebody who's a great communicator. That's one of those areas that any business owner needs to keep an eye on, needs to understand, but working with somebody who can find that balance that says, you know what, I'm going to send you a snapshot once a week, and then once a month, we're going to sit down and go over kind of the results for the month in detail. Is that right? Is it more? Is it less? But being able to, again, find that happy medium. And hiring has been similarly important to us because, again, we want to make sure that anybody we're going to put in front of a customer or prospect is going to do a great job of representing the brand and who we are as a company. And so thankfully, having been connected in the technology world for a lot of years, I knew a lot of great people and could recruit some of them out of corporate America when they were ready to go. That's been a huge asset to us. We've also hired some folks that we had not had previous experience with. And so we are very deliberate in that process. And we spend as much of the interview time looking at personality and how they're going to react to and work with people in stressful situations as we do the technical acumen. Because I can train somebody technical acumen. If you come to me and you say, yeah, I'm okay fixing PCs, but I don't know servers, I don't know networking, I don't know high-end security, I can train you on that. I can send you to vendor training, I can send you to industry training, I can mentor you. If you come to me, though, and aren't good working with people, that is a much harder, if not almost impossible skill to teach. Right. So I really want to make sure that we always focus on hiring the attitude and train the skill kind of mantra. And we've been very fortunate in doing that. Now, I will tell you, we have used a recruiting firm for our last few hires, and that's really helped us tremendously because, again, my time is valuable to the business, landing customers, keeping existing customers happy, running operations. Pouring through resumes is not a great use of my time. So using a recruiter, and we found a great one that we really like working with, has helped us get down to, a short list of candidates. They do some great testing to make sure that they're going to be a good personality fit, to tell me as the person who's going to be managing them, how they're going to be to manage, how they are at being able to self-manage, how they are at picking up new technology, and how they are at learning. All of those things give me a very good kind of litmus test to look at to say, okay, yeah, I know and have confidence this is going to be a great hire, and here's why. So removing a lot of that kind of doubt is tremendously beneficial. And the most recent hire we've had, we're about to have another one, which is great news, but our most recent hire actually was our first full-time salesperson. And that was a great kind of milestone for us as well. And as we talked about, kind of knowing where those change points are for the business are important. Yeah. And so one of the things I realized that I was starting to struggle with several months ago was the differentiation between operational work and sales work. Yeah. You've got to be constantly selling. I think anybody who believes otherwise is headed for disaster, and I'll be quite honest about that. In my mind, the minute you stop growing, you start dying. There's just no two ways about that. And so what I was struggling with was if I had two things to deal with, and one was serving an existing customer and fixing something that needed fixing, and I've got a great team of technicians, but sometimes there's something that you have specific expertise about or you have experience on. And if it came down to serving an existing customer and fixing something, and going out and following up on a lead that's not ready to close yet, the existing customer always won out for me. And so I realized that was going to be an impediment long-term to our success. So I ran into a salesperson that I had known for several years, that I worked with on a number of projects. We had referred business back and forth. I really liked him personally because he was one of those salespeople that you always could tell was there to help identify and fix the customer's problem, to make the pain go away. Right. And there's kind of, and this is an oversimplification, but there's kind of two types of salespeople at the highest level. There's that kind, and there's the person who is clearly there because their boss told them they had to close 5 more deals this month, and this is the product you're pushing. And you can just feel them reading off the skew in their brain going, I got to close them on this. I don't care if they need it or not. I got to close them on this. The guy we hired is completely the antithesis of that. He is driven by customer service, understanding the customer need, and delivering a great solution to that. So because I had known him for a long time, because we had worked together in the past, it was a really easy decision for me to make to say, yes, now's the right time. Great. Come on, work with us, be a part of our success, and it's been one of the best decisions I've made.
And you said that when he first came on, there was an agreement before he would go to like a full commission type. How'd y'all talk through that and work that out?
So because we had a good relationship, we were able to approach it in a very open and forthright and transparent manner. And we realized that, we didn't have enough of a funnel, enough of a growing book of business to be able to put somebody like that on commission immediately. So he came in and worked with us just salaried for a brief period. But he's been incredibly driven towards building that book of business and towards building towards a commission model. So again, we had a very forthright conversation, had our attorney make sure that everything passed the sniff test in terms of staying in the good graces of the IRS. But again, because he was a known good quantity and because I had already had a trusted relationship with him, that was incredibly easy for us to, again, have a very open and straightforward conversation and be able to find a way to make it work for both of us, because I'm a big believer that you don't, in negotiation, have to have a winner and a loser. You can have everybody walk away feeling like they came out of that better than they went into it. Sure. And so it was a great fit and a great win, and if I could clone him, I would, but I'm pretty sure it's still illegal.
That's great. Now, all right, so you've had a lot of growth. You've been, you started 2011. Here we are now in 2019. How do you feel about the future, and what's your vision for scaling?
Sure. That is always one of those important balancing decisions to make. And when I mentioned earlier that we're close to hiring another person, we look with our finance folks. We look at kind of where we are in our growth, what the prospects look like. So the two things to weigh in my mind in that decision are you don't ever want to outstrip your capacity to serve the clients you have. Again, it's always less expensive to keep a customer happy than it is to win a new one. So I always want to make sure we don't outstrip our capacity to serve our existing customer base. But you've obviously got to be adding talent, because as you bring on more and more new business, you've got to make sure that person's ready and able to step in. You don't want to have to, we needed them 2 weeks ago and now I got to hire somebody, and that's going to take time, and then train them up, and that's going to take time. And there's pain for the rest of the organization while you're doing that. So it's been important to find that kind of balancing point. We've got some good metrics we look at now and some good things to monitor to tell us when that right time is. And thankfully, that's been incredibly helpful to us to not have to, just go out and guess and hope you're right about when it's time to hire.
Right. Now, what are some of those metrics that would be helpful for somebody who's listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, it's looking at the labor efficiency rate, looking at kind of where we are in terms of consumption of the staff we have in place, looking at where the finances are, not only presently, but what our pipeline looks like, what are those kind of big deals, and how confident do we feel that we're going to close those, and basically using all of that into a model that says, okay, here's where your right time to hire is going to be. And there's always going to be a little bit of a margin there, so you're going to say, in this 30 to 60 day time frame is going to be where you're going to want to hire. And it helps to be able to then start to ramp up a little bit, because you're going to have to get the posting out there. You're going to have to vet through a lot of candidates. It's a tight labor market right now, let's face it. So we do have to be deliberate about that and make sure that we're, again, finding that right balance point and making the decision at the right time.
Tell us a little bit about your experience with the tight labor market. Are you, and maybe that you mentioned that you need some lead time.
Yeah.
You've been using a hiring group.
Yep.
That's been helpful. But have you figured out that there's like a science to the lead time, or
there is, and obviously it changes as the market evolves. So one of the things that we've been really deliberate about in all of that is making sure that we have a well-defined set of expectations around what we want. I think it's always a risk to not clearly define what you're looking for and being able to then measure candidates against that. And whether you're doing it yourself or whether you're using a service, somebody is going to have to be able to vet initially, do these folks meet these check boxes?
Sure.
And so it's important to be deliberate about that. I'm also willing to take the extra time in the hiring process because I want to make good hiring decisions for folks that are with me for a long time.
Right.
There tends to be a lot of turnover in the technology industry. Most of our folks have been with us 2 years or more, some of them significantly longer than that. And again, I want to make good hiring decisions about people who can grow with the company, who can help us increase and improve what we're doing, can kind of raise the company's game. And so I'm willing to take the extra time it takes rather than just kind of getting in a desperate situation where you go, I got to have a body in that chair next Monday.
Right.
My experience has been that if you go that route, you'll be more prone to make mistakes. If you're in a rush, if you're feeling the pressure to fill a position today, you're more likely to make mistakes than if you go, I know I need to hire in 30 days or 60 days.
Right.
I can take the time to find the right candidate, to screen thoroughly, to really dig into what we're going to be hiring for and who we're going to be hiring. And you make smarter decisions, which means you don't have to repeat that process again.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take you to figure that out? Because that's something that I've been kind of struggling with, where we're getting new jobs and I'm trying to make my business so I'm not on every job site. But I also don't want to bring in someone that might be ready to go and we're on a contractual basis, like a 1099
right.
basis with all of our operators. So I want to be able to actually bring them on and be able to supply them work, but I also don't want to bring them on, too early and not have anything for them.
Absolutely. And that is kind of that magic balancing point to figure out where that is. And it does take a lot of time to figure that out. About a year into Carmichael's existence, the work got to be too much. So my wife got... My kids say it's voluntold, but she got volunteered to help keep the books, to help set appointments, to do some kind of light office administrative work. Our kids were in elementary school and middle school at the time. She could do that from home. I was still operating out of a home office. She could do that easily, was great. Obviously, there's nobody I trust more than that to help me with the business, so that was wonderful too. The first person we brought on was somebody much like that we brought on as a contractor. It was somebody I had worked with doing some IT work in a volunteer environment for a nonprofit. Was somebody we were passionate about helping. They had a lot of volunteers who had done their IT over the years and people with good intentions, but didn't necessarily equate to being done very well. So, it's a wiring closet that looks like a rat's nest of cabling, PCs that are kind of temperamental at best. So they had gotten a grant to get some new equipment. So we came in to kind of refresh all of that, to do it the right way, again, to leverage kind of good practices. There was another volunteer there who we worked with. She was fantastic. We really liked her. And so she came on as a contractor and worked with us. She had her own business that was focused more on women and the elderly. So there wasn't a lot of direct overlap competition because we were really focused just on business organizations, not on the consumer side of things. So we could work collaboratively there and worked really well with her. She eventually went into real estate as the market recovered, and we were happy for her, and it was the right decision for everybody at the time. But that was kind of an important learning experience for me. And we did do our own hiring through the first 2 or 3 candidates, first 2 or 3 positions we hired for. And as we got further into that, I started to kind of, again, step back and evaluate how much time was I spending on that and how productive was it for me to do that. We got introduced, again, by somebody in PowerCore to a recruiter who met with that person, again, had an immediate rapport, really liked what they were able to say about their processes. They made a lot of sense to me. And so we hired our next position using them. And I have sworn I will never go back to doing it myself. It was so much better, so much more efficient. The hire was so much higher caliber and so much of a better fit right out of the gate I just can't see a time when I wouldn't do it that route. Now, I will say that sometimes we do have folks who, again, I'm a big believer in the power of networking, not only for finding new business, but for just being connected to other people who can help you in a million different ways, and you can in return. So I have occasionally had folks referred to me who says, I know this person who's looking for a job in technology. They're not a fit for my company right now, or we're not hiring, but I wanted to pass their name along. And we have gotten some great folks that way. We even had our senior technical architect right now was referred to us by a customer as a very young man. He had done some work for them. They really liked him. He had gone off to college, had come back to Atlanta, and was looking to get back into technology. And so the customer said, hey, we know this person, family friend sort of thing, but he's been an enormous asset to us as a company. And again, it is kind of that power of networking and that power of good communication. People know what you need, and sometimes you get some really amazing finds that way.
With you hiring the way you've been hiring, how do you plan on keeping your culture the way it is now?
So that's one of the things that I have always been really cautious about, because I do want to continue to grow the business, and we do want to continue to be able to serve more customers and add more staff and do all of those things. We have been very cautious, though, about the rate at which we grow. So we don't ever want to grow so fast that we do wind up making mistakes about that and not being able to instill good corporate culture. We moved into our first office space about 6 years ago, about 2 years after the company started. Just last year, we moved into greatly expanded, really nice new office space. A really exciting thing for us. Helps the business tremendously. Helps us with kind of the presentation we give to prospects and to customers.
Sure.
But a part of that was I had to decide, did I want to sit in an office or did I want to sit with the team? And I have had in my corporate life big windowed corner offices, and that's nice, but that's not where I take satisfaction out of my job. My team almost never calls me the boss, and I like that. I want to be able to lead, but lead from a position of equality in that I always tell people when they come on board, I have no pride in ownership. Just because I've done it this way since the company started doesn't mean it's not an incredibly bad idea. And if you've got a better idea, let's talk about that. And I always want to make sure that I praise and reward people when they bring great ideas to the table. And that's been an important part of the culture. Another thing that I always tell people in the hiring process is I see my job as the leader of the organization to give them everything they need to be successful. And whether that's tools, whether that's training, whether that is anything else that they need to be able to make the customer happy, that's my job. Sure. Because ultimately they're the ones who are going to delight the customer. I can only be at so many customer sites in a given week. I can only meet with so many people. So it is arming a team of people to be able to go out there and delight customers is what I've got to focus my attention on doing. So we send people to training. We'll pay for certification testing. We want to build an environment where people feel like their feedback is heard, and it legitimately is, and where we capitalize on that. And that's been one of the things that's been really rewarding to me about owning a small business is rather than in corporate America where if you have a great idea that could change the way things run, you take that as a line employee to a supervisor who takes it to a manager who at the next quarterly review will take it to a director who next year will take it to a VP. By the way it's gotten up to where the decision can actually be made, it's gotten so diluted and changed. Yeah. The idea has lost a lot of its impact, and you've wasted a lot of time getting there. And so that's one of the things I love about owning a small business is if we have a great idea tomorrow morning, we can have implemented it and have changed the way the business runs by tomorrow afternoon. Yeah. And that's an incredibly empowering thing to think if we are doing something and we realize this isn't right, it isn't delivering value to the customer, it's not the best way to do it, you can turn on a dime.
Yeah,
and
that's why I love working in the small business space because you don't have to cut through all the different, meeting rooms and everything else. It's just so much faster as far as decision making. That's great.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing that there's, you think bureaucratic processes, you think the government, but yeah, it holds true in the corporate environment given.
Well, that's why someone like, Carmichael Consulting can show up in 2011 and disrupt by just having a client-centric model.
Absolutely.
And you get into that whole concept of break-fix, moving into managed services, and you combine that with a very client-centric process, helping them understand, because I know a lot of people who still have no idea what an IT consultant would do.
Absolutely.
And just to kind of bridge that language gap is a big deal. So it sounds like, above it all, like that Carmichael Consulting was kind of a disruptor. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were very much kind of at the leading edge of that change in how businesses did operate. And there were, you had alluded earlier to, and you're exactly right, there were a lot of businesses that struggled with that because it is mentally a big change. And those businesses had kind of come along in the era when IT companies made their money off of selling you PCs. Well, in the era of Dell and internet shopping, those margins are gone, and businesses have to transform how they're delivering value. And the value is no longer putting physical hardware in place. It is the expertise you bring. It is a service-driven economy. So the service you have to deliver is not only great customer service, but great expertise and great insight and knowledge. And so we have really focused our business in growing with those ideas in mind. And thankfully, that's proven to be really valuable to us, and our customers are easily able to see that value as well.
So,
so while there's probably no set process that works for every customer, just so we all have a better understanding, Corbin, myself, and anyone listening, what would be the ideal client for you? What sort of services would you provide? Because like Corbin said, someone hears IT service consultant. What is that? What do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that as I've matured in kind of my business acumen as a small business owner, it's been important for me to do, because let's face it, you're a small business owner, you're starting. If you can pay the check when I hand it to you, you're a great customer. Great. Come on. You're my new best friend. And we all start at that point. And you don't ever want to betray that trust that you've earned. So we have been very careful and deliberate as we've grown and refined our targets and refined who we're working with to make sure that we take good care of our existing customers and either find a trusted partner to transition them to if they're just not a good fit for us anymore, or hopefully we've helped them grow their business and maybe they've grown to the point where they need managed services now. Sure. So at a high level, for us, we really look at being able to typically work with companies of about 10 to 150 employees is kind of our sweet spot. We have a lot of our customers in that range. They tend to be more kind of professional services, legal, medical, financial, kind of white collar professional service organizations. Part of the reasoning there is those organizations understand the value of predictable, protected, available systems. Let's face it, if you're an attorney and you're billing hourly and your systems are down, that is an enormous problem for you almost immediately. Right. Same thing in the medical field. Who wants to go to a doctor's appointment? They go, yeah, our computers are down. We can't, log you in. We can't process your insurance. We can't do any of that. Again, there's a tremendous value to being able to have predictable, reliable, safe systems in place. So we've evolved as we have grown and looking at kind of where are we making the most positive impact, where are our clients seeing the best value and the return on the money they're spending with us, and what is that best fit, and continuing to evolve that. And that's hard to do as a business owner. Again, you kind of start off with this idea of, if you want to do business with me, as long as I don't think you're going to write me a bad check, I want to work with you. And it does take some kind of forced, deliberate action to change how you're looking at that. And thankfully, we were able to do that a long time ago. And it's been absolutely beneficial not only to us, but to the people we work with. Again, we want to make sure that every customer we work with is delighted, but there are some that are just naturally going to be a better fit. And there's no one business in any industry. Disney closed on Fox yesterday, but they're still not the only entertainment company out there. Nobody is the right answer for every customer. Right. So there's always opportunity out there to try and refine what you're doing and who you're doing it for, and making sure that it's a great fit on both sides of the table.
Yeah. Well, is there one thing that you'd really want to leave with somebody who's listening today about your journey, and maybe there's a pitfall or even just something to be remembered as part of your success?
Yeah, I think the two things for me that have been the biggest in terms of the overall impact are you do have to mature all parts of the business as you grow. And like I said, starting off in a home office, just me doing everything was easy. you got to make sure that you take all of the parts of that business as it grows. So when you bring on somebody to take a part of that business, make sure that they're going to meet not only what you're doing today, but they can grow with you, or they can scale up to what you're going to need tomorrow. When you're looking at your partnerships, so one of the things we did early on was to establish our own credibility and leverage our own expertise in the industry. We partnered with a lot of companies. So we're part of the Apple Consultants Network, we're Microsoft partners, we're Dell partners, Dropbox, Cisco, Meraki, the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. But again, we wanted to find companies that were known names, that were industry leaders, where we could prove our expertise by becoming a part of their network, and being able to then leverage, their marketing materials and all of that stuff. So again, it's kind of maturing all parts of the business and who you're serving. All of those things feed together. So it's not just an idea of being able to flip a switch and I'm 10 years into it. Nobody's going to be able to do that without a lot of investor money. And if you've got the investor money, great, more power to you, go get it. But again, I think that's important. The other big thing for me is, again, staying true to your corporate culture. Sure. And so I came into this really wanting to focus on great customer service. And so we've made sure that the people we hire and the tools we're using show that in every interaction with the customer. Because there is never a lost opportunity. There should never be a lost opportunity to make a great impression on a customer. Every time you interact with them, you have an opportunity to wow them. And your team and you as the leader need to make sure you're seizing on that every chance you get.
Wow, that's great. Awesome advice. Tell us, and those who are listening, how can we get a hold of you?
So you can find us online at carmichaelconsulting.net, or give our office a call. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 678-719-9671.
24 hours a day, what do you mean?
I mean, for our customers, if they call at 3 in the morning because they can't print, somebody's going to answer that phone and get the problem fixed for them when they call.
Well, that's good to know. Jacobs, tell the listeners how they can get a hold of you and find what you've been working on.
Well, if they call me at 3 a.m., I may not be able to answer. But, I like to say that we're open 24/7. But right now, it is primarily me where all the sales and customer support comes falling through. So that being said, you can go to iVue Media online by searching us on Google, Facebook, YouTube, any social media platform, or go directly to our website at www.ivue.media.
Great. Of course, I'm Corbin Cook, S&B Strategy Consultants and Exilium Associates. And you can find me online at smbstrategyconsultants.com. And, of course, you can reach me at 404-783-3305. And feel free to reach out to me if you would like to be on the show. We'd love to talk to you. If you have a story or something that would be very helpful to the listeners, as you maybe have found something helpful in some of our most recent podcasts, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to have a conversation. So thanks to everybody, and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tyler, thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Hey, thanks for being a part of it.